What's up and welcome to My Point of View. I am your fat and opinionated host, and we have talked a lot about Bryan Kohberger's education and about how he was studying criminology in college. In my last video, we talked a little more about one of Bryan Kohberger's classes, which was a psychological sleuthing class that helps people better understand the mind of a madman. But now, some information just got released that is totally going to blow some people's minds. Because it turns out that Bryan Kohberger's grad program had access to a crime lab. It had access to video cam live camera streams from around the city. I mean, these students had access to inside information that the general public did not have access to. They had access to photos from crime scenes, and I'm talking recent active crime scenes. They had access to body cam footage from patrol officers who were currently out patrolling the streets. It gets crazy. I'm telling you all right now, if Bryan Kohberger used this to look into the Idaho 4 case, then someone is going to be in trouble. But let's go ahead and dive into the details, because this might be the craziest piece of information we've gotten yet. Bryan Kohberger's doctoral program at Washington State University maintains access to a crime lab database of police body cam videos as well as live streams from security cameras on and off campus. The programs are referenced on the school's public website and are used to study policing and the complex social interactions between patrol officers and the people they encounter, as well as other government functions. A source who works for the university and has direct knowledge of the department is warning that the research tools in the wrong hands could have allowed a suspected unaliver to view unredacted crime scene images, potential videos of unalivings, and even live streams of surveillance cameras with remote controls that allow the viewer to zoom in on faces. I don't think that any amount of positive research that has come out of this department is worth the risks of letting a wolf in the henhouse, says the insider. They are all obsessed with crime and criminals. You'd have to have a PhD in criminology, but sometimes that obsession goes to other levels and it attracts this kind of madness. Let's go ahead and pause right there, because what? I mean, I'm sure some of you all probably went to college for this stuff, and maybe this is common knowledge to some people, but I did not know that college students had this much access to certain things. So you mean to tell me that Bryan, while at school, and we know his teachers love him, they said he was their best student, their smartest student. So I can imagine that at times Bryan could have been using these security cameras or these remote controls to follow people, to zoom in on people. We know that the food truck video that everyone was looking at, we know that there are cameras that literally live stream certain areas, and that's just anywhere in the world at this point. But Bryan had this certain access that normal people don't have, and that really creeps me out. And from what this source is saying, he's like, listen, or she, whoever it is, like, yeah, I don't think that, all of the research that is done here, it doesn't outweigh the possibilities of something going wrong here. And in my mind, I mean, when people get this obsessed with stuff, you kind of gotta worry about them. I was just talking about this in the last video. How many psychopaths has Catherine Ramsland created in her classes? You have these professors that are totally obsessed with people who do horrific things. And then they have these understudies that become obsessed with people who do horrific things. How many of them go on to do horrific things? But let's go ahead and dive back into this article. WSU's Complex Social Interaction Lab, CSI Lab, and Division of Governmental Studies and Services, DGSS, are research entities on campus. The DGSS recently unveiled a report after examining 5 years' worth of data on Washington State police stops for evidence of bias. The results were mixed. But alarming, according to the source, is the DGSS's access to live streams of security cameras around Pullman. One example taken from the command center shows multiple screens of live feeds, including one of a person in a car in a restaurant parking lot near Greek Road. More than 5 police departments share body cam video with the CSI Lab database, according to the university. One of them is the Pullman Police Department, according to the source, who could not confirm the additional agencies. Students can apply for access to the CSI Lab online by filling out a brief questionnaire. It's unclear whether Kohberger had gone through this process, but the CSI computers are located in the same building and on the same floor as the graduate offices, according to the insider, who pointed the locations out on a map. The body cam terminals are separated from the department's main conference room by a soundproofed wall and communicate with the internet only through limited pathways. A school spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment. Moscow police told Fox News that the department does not share its body cam archive or any live security camera streams with the researchers at WSU. The insider also sees a problem in the advanced study of crime for academia's sake. I've always been skeptical of the research this department has done, especially the folks that don't go on to solve real-world crime in law enforcement, but stick around in academia and live and breathe this stuff on taxpayer dollars, said the insider. And what does it really amount to? Basically just neutering police more and more every day. It's just sickening after all of this. You know, whoever that insider is, I like him. I would like to sit down and have a conversation with them because I think our minds kind of think alike. Because that's kind of the point that I've been trying to make in a lot of my videos. That where does this obsession with true crime, where does it lead some people? Me personally, I talk about true crime on YouTube sometimes. Sometimes I talk about other news stories. But it's not my main passion, if you will. It's something I'm interested in, but I don't let it consume my life. But I've seen a lot of people who let it consume their lives. And oftentimes they're depressed, they're in dark places. And I'm telling you all right now, you all watching this video, take breaks away from true crime content, away from true crime murder mysteries on streaming services and television, and watch something more lighthearted sometimes. And as far as these students go, yeah, I wonder, where do these studies really lead to? Like the insider was saying, sure, a few people who graduate go on to actually have careers, you know, where I guess this education, some would say, is needed. But the majority of them don't. And they're just sitting there in academia, in college for years, studying criminal minds and studying psychopaths. And half of them go on to become psychopaths themselves. Now, mind you, I don't think a lot of them carry out acts like what Bryan is accused of doing. But have you seen college students lately? They're whacked out of their mind. I'm only halfway joking there, but seriously, I do wonder, like, where can this lead people? And what type of people does it attract? You know, like, I don't know, some jobs, it makes me question, like, the people who enter those fields. Like, why did you want to do this? Like, why would you actively pursue this career field? Are you sure you're not a psycho? You know what I mean? Someone who's so obsessed with how these criminals, these killers' minds work, then where can that obsession lead you? So I understand exactly what this source is saying. But as far as Bryan having access to all of this stuff, that's scary. Now, luckily, he didn't have access to the Moscow PD's body cam and their information. So we know that for sure. So, that's one of the main things I was worried about. But just think, if Bryan got away with this, think about all of the instruments and tools that Bryan had at his disposal. And to take it one step further, did Bryan do anything with these tools before? Whatever happened with the Idaho 4? I'm still not convinced. And listen, I'm not someone that tries to spread conspiracies in these true crime cases. But I am not convinced that this is the first time Bryan took someone's life. And I damn sure don't feel like it would have been the last, if he hadn't have gotten caught. So, did Bryan use some of these tools to find other victims, possibly? That's a possibility. But I need to know, did Bryan use this? And then we need to have a conversation as to why this is needed. Because in my mind, I don't think random people in college or in any field should have access to some of this stuff. Like, what? You could just go access crime scene footage and data that you have no business looking at? I understand, educating yourself and stuff, but there's lines that shouldn't be crossed, and I feel like these programs are crossing some of these lines. And like I keep saying in some of my videos, as society progresses and we find new ways to investigate crimes and our investigation tools get sharper, so will our criminals. They're going to have to find new and creative ways to get away with things. And I think going into this field of study is one of the best ways to try to figure out ways to get away with things, because you're actively learning about it. And if you have tools like this at your disposal, there's no telling what you can do. Think of Kohberger in the freaking mastermind chair, computer screens all around him. He's got an eye on everyone in freaking town, watching you. You don't even know he's watching you. And we know Bryan had that weird thing that he likes watching people, because Bryan watched the Idaho 4 for months. So who's to say he wasn't watching other people on his little remote control security cameras? It freaking sickens me to my stomach knowing that Bryan possibly had access to stuff like this. And to take it one step further, how many other psychos are out there that have access to stuff like this? We need to start having a conversation about this, for real, because this is too much. This is too much for me. I'm about to sign off. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and remember to always remain opinionated.